I hate the term work-life balance. Work-life balance doesn't exist in the life of the most successful business owners, in my opinion. I think they've found a passion and they're always on. This concept that it's easy or you don't have to work hard or you don't have to log more hours, I just think is such garbage. Because the most successful people that I think the three of us know, I say even today, they're still the hardest working. Welcome to The Deal Factory. I'm your host, Jeff Harkness. The Deal Factory is sponsored by 3PG Advisors. Each episode, we bring in founders, CEOs, and leaders in industries that are helping companies scale boldly and then eventually exiting brilliantly using institutional capital. In studio today, real pleasure. This one's been in the making for a while. I have Ben Gandy and Ken Thomas from Advisor Consulting, and we've known each other for a long time. We're going to get into a lot of detail today on everything that's happening within the industry that we call green. And Ken, Ben, the first duo in studio. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
good to see you.
And it's a beautiful day and a good Friday to be together talking shop. So thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
So listen, I know that you guys are, in my book, and I use this term respectfully, and it's the truth. For the audience, I have two Hall of Famers in the room, and the story that the two of you have and the legacy that you guys have built really across the landscape industry, turf care, tree care, snow and ice. And as the audience recognizes, we got a little bit of gray hair. We're still good looking.
Yeah.
But I'm thrilled that you're here, and we're going to deep dive on a lot of things that I think are relevant in an industry that's continuing to go through evolutionary change since maybe what the three of us call the good old days. I want to start with this because there's times people forget about how good your stories and backgrounds are. So I want to kind of step back and go through a little bit of the professional journey. So there's times where consultants, they're just consultants. And there's a lot of great ones out there, but you guys started as operators, and Ken, you started in the classic entrepreneur building a business, and then looped Ben in years later. Can you kind of go back to the beginning a little bit and talk through your journey, because it's a great one?
Yeah, glad to. And certainly I'm going to share this with Ben because he's been a big part of it since the very beginning. So like a lot of us, my journey started, and it's been a great journey, with a labor of love for the landscape industry. I loved working outdoors. I worked at golf courses and landscape companies when I was in high school and college. And I loved being outdoors. I loved the smell of fresh cut grass. I mean, it was just incredible to be outside and see the beauty that we provided. I wound up getting a degree in biology, thought I was going to be a dentist, and instead went into landscaping, started mowing grass, much to the disappointment of my parents. You know how that goes, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I never knew how big it would be. But I started a company with $1,000 in a pickup truck here in Atlanta, a company called Landscape Techniques. It took us 15 years to grow that company from zero to $5 million, which back then there weren't very many companies over $10 million in the whole industry. Yeah. So that was something to us. During that time, I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Ben Gandy. He came to work for us. Ben, do you remember those days?
I remember those days. Jeff, I got into the industry working for an apartment developer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I worked as a laborer, and it was a great gig in terms of learning horticulture, right? They were very horticulturally focused. But then I went to work for Ken, and Ken moved me into a management position where I figured out slowly, because I'm a slow learner, that I was going to have to learn about business, about management, and about leadership. And horticulture remains a love, but the lifelong journey has been about learning about leadership, about business, about management.
Yeah. Back then, right, was it you answered an ad in the newspaper or you knew somebody.
Jeff, nobody knows what a newspaper is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
We had a staff meeting one time recently where I said, and we got a young staff at 3PG. I said, hey, do you know who's in your Rolodex?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And most of our young superstars, they don't even know what a Rolodex is, and doing that. So fantastic. So Ken, you passion for the industry, start like a lot of entrepreneurs, one employee at a time, one truck at a time, out there making things happen. And I didn't know that it took you 15 years to get to $5 million.
It did. We were really good landscape technicians, both Ben and myself, and the folks that worked with us, which meant that we really knew how to do the work, and we got better and better at doing the work, but not as good at running a business.
Yeah.
So we began to seek experience and knowledge. We went to the conferences like a lot of people do and hired a consultant. I hired Kevin Kehoe, one of the industry's first consultants, incredible human being, taught me a lot about business. And during that 15 years, it was really the foundation of our transition from landscape technician to landscape business people. And it served us well over time, but you had to get in the trenches, you had to learn the business, or you had to learn how to do the work, and then we learned how to do the business.
Yeah. So the financial acumen and the business side of it kind of came second to, again, the passion and get out there and make things happen in the field.
That's right.
As you're moving on, so you grow landscape techniques, and then people start banging on your door back in the day. Talk about that.
Yeah, there weren't very many people banging back then, but we were going through the first roll-up of our industry back in the 90s. And at that time, a group called Notre Capital started a company called Landcare USA. At the same time, True Green was beginning to get into the acquisition mode in our space. And we sold our company to Landcare at the time, which eventually was bought by True Green. So we became True Green Landcare back in the late 90s.
That was Rex Gore, Dennis Dowdle, right? Were they involved?
They were part
then?
of it. There was actually, I think, 90 companies from around the country that were all bought into True Green Landcare. Obviously, some big guys, Rupert's, Northwestern up in Oregon, which
Pacific Northwest,
turned into Pacific. And I could tell you 10 of them, but I can't remember all of them. But that stage of business for us was really what I would consider the awakening stage, because all of a sudden we were grouped together with some of the industry's best and finest landscape organizations. And it was an affirmation of everything that we had learned and had put into practice. But now we were seeing it in real time at other companies that used to be closed off to us. Nobody shared how they did business back in the early days. So all of a sudden, everybody's books were open, their organizations were opened, and we were like, wow, okay, well, we did a lot of good things, a lot of things right, but we could do a lot of good things better.
Yeah.
And so Ben and I both served in the True Green Landcare world in different roles. Ben, how did you...
I ended up running a branch initially after that acquisition, and then eventually 2 branches, and learned a lot very quickly about business. It was probably not my best employment experience, frankly, but I certainly learned a lot.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of, prior to that, guys, if you remember, it was predominantly Valley Crest and Brickman, led by 2 iconic families in the industry, the Sperber family and the Brickman family.
That's right.
I was a kid back then. If there was ever a deal opportunity, it might have been, call Bert Sperber or call Scott Brickman, or even Dick Brickman at that time. And we really hadn't seen much M&A activity. It was basically those 2 companies that eventually, reached $1 billion. They were acquired and became Brightview through the KKR acquisition. But I remember in Atlanta back then, Ben, maybe you can speak of that. There was a lot of integration issues.
Oh gosh, yeah, they bought, Jeff, I may misremember, but it seems like they bought 6 different companies just in the Atlantic market, and all of them had vastly different cultures, and all of them competed the day before. So
that's right.
The day that happened, now we got to learn to cooperate and work together. So there was a lot of integration issues that I don't think the parent company had really thought through how that was going to look.
Yeah. A lot of lessons there for sure. And so, Ken, fast forward, you and Ben are there for a period of time. some other companies that we know, here locally and within the region. I don't remember, Ken, when you exited that, did you take some time off for a while before you got into your next venture, which was Scapes? I mean, talk about that.
Yeah, I did. And maybe just to backtrack a second, Ben and I have worked together for, I don't know, since the dinosaur age.
At least, yeah.
A long time. And one thing we learned a long time ago was that we both have unique skill sets. Ben's always been a really strong operator. I've been a little more of a strategist and visionary kind of leader, and together it's been a great team and a great partnership that has served us well and served our companies well. But yes, I actually stepped away from True Green Land Care, but I think Ben stayed on a little bit longer, and I got into commercial real estate.
You did. I remember that now.
Yeah. And in fact, CVS Pharmacy was just coming to market at that time, so I was in with some other guys, and we invested in the CVS sites and got involved in that as a development partnership, and that was fun, something different. But the calling of landscaping and the outdoor environment just kept knocking on my shoulder, and eventually True Green came back to a few of the original owners here in Atlanta that had built some construction basis in their companies, and they wanted to divest themselves of construction across the country, and wisely so. They wanted to focus on their recurring revenue and maintenance, so they came back to the three owners here, and I was the only one that stepped forward. Everybody else ran like hell. I bought what was left of my old company back from True Green, plus another couple of brands here. And that was the start of another great adventure.
Yeah.
Scapes.
Is that the 2.0 version? Do you kind of think of it? No, so Scapes was 3.0 for you because you were in commercial real estate for a little while.
Yeah, probably so. 3.0. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How long, you came over, Ben, to Scapes pretty quickly, right? So as you stepped in, Ken, and you bought that business what was it? It was Steve Coffey was the original.
So Steve was an original owner of Scapes, which is one of the brands we bought back. Bill Kilmer and Joe Skelton were the original owners of Lifescapes. We bought Lifescapes, and then LTI, Landscape Techniques, was our original company. So I bought all three brands with very little asset. It was mostly brand equity left in the marketplace.
Right.
These were 25-year-old brands in the Atlanta market. With the original telephone numbers that were still there. So the phone was continuing to ring for really residential design build services, which was a benefit and a bit of a curse in the beginning.
Yeah.
So we had to learn how to take those three entities, put them together, rebrand under one particular brand. We branded under Scapes for our commercial maintenance angle of the business, and then we branded under Lifescapes for our maintenance, residential maintenance side of the business.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I came on fairly shortly, really because part of the strategic plan was to divest away from strictly residential design build and build the recurring revenue stream back, right? And that's what we branded Scapes under, and that's what I came on board.
So you guys built that company together, pulled in some members of the team, both new and some previous relationships, and then you scaled that and exited that business as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. And Jeff, I don't know if you remember, but that's where we met you.
I do remember that. I want to hop in and tell you my version. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
So my version of that story for the audience is I want to say I met some other leaders at Scapes. It wasn't Ben. It was Pete and Evan, who we love dearly. Shout out to Pete and Evan, and just great guys. And they've created some of their own great legacy, and it's been a joy to see that. But I think I was at a speaking event, and they said, "Hey, we want to go ahead and loop you in to meet Ken, our owner, because we're interested in a phantom stock deal, and we want to put together a phantom stock program. Can you help us do that?" And Ken, I don't know if you remember, so I was like, well, heck yeah, because I knew who Scapes was. I knew, Ben, your name. I knew, Ken, your track record. And so, I was younger back then.
Yes.
But I was pretty excited to have an opportunity to step in. And I think our first meeting, Ken, I don't know. Maybe it was a little awkward or off guard because the guys were, have seen what you guys have built, and you'd already done it once before with landscape techniques. And I think the first time we sat down, you kind of said, like, who are you and what are you doing here and what are we talking about?
Right.
Yeah. I think it kind of went that way, Ben.
Yeah, it did.
And look at us now, right?
A lot has changed.
100%. Yeah. Well, to Pete and Evan's credit, they did a great job of sourcing you and getting you involved. And obviously your experience and style blended really quickly. And it's been a great relationship.
Yeah. So it was exciting there. So fast forward, you build Scapes. We put a phantom stock plan in, complete alignment with your leadership team, Ken, Ben, which is there's a lesson in that.
Yep.
This concept of, I'm just going to keep it all to myself and that I can do it on my own. That's a small mindset, in my opinion, particularly with this kind of size and scale today. You can't do it on your own. It takes leaders and people, and we'll get into a little bit more. But you went through another successful event, really, too, right? Because we did Lifescapes together.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
We did Lifescapes together, which was the residential part of the business. And then you moved Scapes as well. And Ken, that was what, your third transaction or example of scaling, another two companies and then having a successful outcome.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The second time around, if you remember, I mentioned it took us 15 years to go from zero to $5 million in revenue. We learned a lot. This time around, we had about $4 million worth of residential construction that we bought back from TruGreen.
Yep.
And we went from that $4 million of base to $20 million in 5 years.
Wow.
Really scaling off of that experience and all the systems and processes that we had built, and having looked inside and under the hood of the other companies that had rolled into the TruGreen model, we were definitely at a higher level at that point, and it showed, and it transpired into a very quick growth pattern.
Yeah. We can't change history, but multiples are better today. What a transformation the industry's gone over as we've seen more and more institutional private equity money figure out what I think the three of us know is how great the industry is, the opportunity to grow and scale. And I'm doing a little bit of legwork for a speech that I'm giving in July, and part of our homework is we're trying to figure out within landscape maintenance, enhancement, snow and ice, turf care, tree care, and even some of the irrigation, lighting, and surface water world, how many private equity-backed platforms are there today? And how many transactions have happened? We're over 700 transactions right now that we've been able to document and have in our database. And we're pushing over 50 private equity-backed platforms. And remember what we said earlier. In the green industry, those days used to be, let me call Valleycrest. Let me call Brickman. And if I could do one deal in the industry that year, it's a home run year.
That's right.
This past year we did 14 just in the space from a sell side perspective. So tremendous growth and really transformational with institutional money coming in. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So let's pivot here and let's get into present day. And Ben, I want to start with you. You guys are, as I said, Hall of Famers. You're in a lot of great companies and you're building and positioning them, just given the background and story we just shared with the audience. When you bring in institutional scrutiny, certainly a lot of opportunity, but I think some of the big buzz levers right now, and I want to deep dive on this, is everybody's about revenue growth, Ben. More organic growth. How do we add more maintenance contracts? How do we add more enhancement spend from existing customers? And I think a lot of times stepping into a business, it gets overlooked on how much gross profit improvement can be generated in a business, really digging into the operational side of the business. And again, it's always great. Sales. Can you deep dive on margin improvement and what you guys at Advisor Consulting have done related to lean and operational efficiency, and it really dovetails nicely into the Advisor University with all the training. So Ben, like, really get granular there, because everybody's just sales. What about margin at that GP level? And it's so powerful.
So, Jeff, look, the single biggest cost in our industry is labor. So how do you leverage that, right? If you can leverage that, you can win. If you can leverage that, pick a company, a $10 million company, every point is worth $100,000. So, if I can gain a point, gain 2 points on labor, it drops to the bottom line, all of it, right? One of my expertise is really around lean. So,
will you define that? Because it's like EBITDA and MIUs, right? Every time we use an acronym, it's like, I don't even know what that means. What is lean exactly, Ben?
So let me tell you. So lean is not an acronym. Thank goodness. We got enough acronyms in the world. So lean is a word that's sort of a blanket umbrella around a bunch of concepts. So Toyota company, 100 years ago, Toyota was a textile manufacturer, but they started making vehicles right around World War II, and then World War II happened, and they got out of the textile business after that, but they stayed in they had to stay in something, right? So they stayed in vehicle manufacturing, and they had to figure it out. They didn't have any money because World War II didn't go well for Toyota, right?
That's right.
They didn't have any customers because World War II didn't go well for Jan, and they didn't have any natural resources, and they still don't. So they had to get really, really smart. What are they going to do? And they had some help from the United States in terms of rebuilding their infrastructure base in Japan, but that left after about 10 years. They got really smart about how to do work, and they began to really threaten the Ford General Motors of the world in about the 1980s. And then the 90s came along. Honda and Nissan and all these other foreign manufacturers had piled on. They beat the crap out of Ford General Motors. Yeah. And people started to ask, how can you build a car on an island, ship it to the United States, and sell it here for less money than we could build a car domestically? And by the way, it's a better car. And in the 90s, they really were a significantly better product. Yeah. And that's a good question. You should ask that question. That's People literally went to Japan and began to study Toyota and ask about that. And there's been many books written, but the umbrella term has been called lean. And it's a term that just applies to being very granular about thinking about how to engineer the work to take the waste out of the activities and just focus on the value. I'm abbreviating the conversation a little bit, but a lot of those ideas, those concepts are very applicable to our industry, but it really involves understanding the concepts and then getting out there and looking at the work and thinking about it and getting good at planning it and assessing it at the field level, at a very granular level. Yeah.
And so give me an example. I didn't know all that by the background. Cool, it's really a cool story and concept. So just take a large maintenance property, like bring it down to that level. I think people forget just how much coordination and planning and difficulty it is to deploy and then go out there and execute. So give some examples there at the field level. Like
throw out a couple of things that just sort of make the point. So I was on a big job last summer in Florida, really big campus, a ton of mowing, Jeff, just a ton of mowing, all right, warehouse work, and probably 20 hours worth of mowing. Okay, and mowing is mowing, all right. Not a lot of other work content. I mean, you got to do a little bit of weed eating, edging, blowing, weed control. All right. But you can do it in 4 to 6 hours, all these other activities. Yeah. They're sending a 3-man crew out there week after week, coming in at 30-ish hours when it was bid for closer to 25. Sending 2 mowers with a 3-man crew. Well, if there's 2 mowers with 20 hours worth of mowing, they're going to mow for 10 hours apiece.
Yeah, 2 guys on a mower.
2 guys on they're doing the best.
It's easier, by the way. Right? I just want to ride the mower.
I want to ride the mower.
That's right.
They're working as hard as they can, but 2 guys mowing 20 hours, 10 hours apiece. The other guy is just sort of looking for stuff to do about after lunch because he's kind of done. So he's just wandering with the weed eater because they're not done yet. So based on simply the equipment being wrong, we need 3 mowers on the job. Yep. then they're stuck at 30 hours forever. You can't get out of there any
That's
faster.
right.
You know, I was actually down at the Atlanta airport where I spent way too much time last week looking at
all of us, right?
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Looking at the maintenance for that job. That's a huge job. We did some laps around it, but thinking about the equipment, thinking about the direction of travel, because you have these long linear stretches of landscape where you're going to end up with a bunch of dead walking if you don't really plan where you park the truck. I know that seems juvenile, but it's
Well, how do you move the truck through the property?
How do you move the truck through what kind of equipment do you need? How do you think about how to move the truck, the scope, the timing, what time of day do you want to be there, the equipment set, the sequence of activities? All those can really be engineered. And Jeff, I have seen over and over again where you can find 5, 10, 15, even 20% productivity gain with nobody working any harder.
Yeah.
Just thinking about how you put it together, how you plan, how you think about it. Working hard's not it. And we have all these incredibly hardworking people in our industry that will go out there and absolutely bust ass.
Yeah.
But if you got the wrong mower set, it doesn't matter how hard you work.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How have you been able to quantify results, right? And just at a high level, each property's different, each company's different. But it's not unusual to see 1 or 2 or 3 points of GP just through that process. Is that fair? Am I way in left field with that?
No, you're absolutely right. I think, typically on any job that I see, there's at least, 10 or 15% waste. We're not going to capture all of that.
Yeah.
But if we can capture, a portion of it year 1, another portion of it year 2, we'll never capture all of it, but that's okay. But, I would set a minimum of, I want 1.5 points year 1 on labor as a percent of revenue. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And then I want to see more year 2.
Yeah.
And there's diminishing return eventually.
Yeah.
Right. But that's minimum.
I just was at the Weathermatic conference, and they got a really great irrigation product, SmartLink, that a lot of our big commercial landscape and residential guys use. And one of the things in my talk, I was creating a comparison between what $1 of installation revenue translates to in profit and enterprise value, and what $1 of what we would consider service margin in doing that. So as I listen to you think about that, if I'm generating another 1.5%, 2%, 3% of GP that goes straight to my bottom line, and then we start applying in the value creation model, multiples that are 6, 8, 10, 14. I mean, it's huge.
Well, so here's the real leverage is I want to figure out how to gain. If I got a 3-man crew working 10 hours a day, it's 30 hours. And can we get the same work done in 25 hours?
Yep.
Maybe, right?
Yep.
Then it's not just that I'm sending them home early. I want to generate another 5 hours worth of revenue on that asset, right? So now I've got that revenue's coming to us sort of cost-free based on the prior circumstances.
I got an irrigation repair. I got enhancements and extras, right? Yeah.
Well, when you think about that scale, 1 point, we talk about pennies.
Yeah.
The pennies are picked up in the field on labor.
Yeah.
So a penny on a $10 million company is $100,000. A penny on a $100 million company is $1 million dropping to the bottom line at a multiple 5, 6, 7. Yeah, the power of compounding is incredible.
What percentage of companies have you guys seen? And this is broad and it's off script a little bit, but would you say that maybe only a half to a third of the companies that we see in the industry are really have that dialed in plan, efficiency, Gantt, lean, just all those concepts?
A third at best.
Third at best, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even institutionally backed private equity companies, there's significant margin improvement available just in training and education. And so start doing the math on that, guys.
That's right.
Awesome. Really, wow. I love that. And again, everybody wants to beat the revenue drum, but there's other ways to get where we want to do best in class margin. Ken, I want to pivot and come back to you. So I enjoy, and you guys do a lot of really tremendous things that the audience maybe doesn't know about. I know you run a lot of account manager programs within the industry. You're doing a lot of field training. You also have an unbelievable operating system and complete library of training, and we'll kind of unpack that here in a minute. But Ken, one of the things that you've talked about a lot that the entrepreneur can relate to is just how difficult it is to grow a business, and then these ceilings that you hit. And I think you call it kind of the entrepreneur journey. Don't you have a term for it where you're growing and you hit a ceiling? Can you unpack that a little bit just on, we have folks in the audience that are doing 1 to 3 million, in revenue. We got folks in the audience that are doing 10. We have folks, over 100 million. But that journey of the entrepreneur, and you've really lived it 3 or 4, probably 4 times now, 5 times if you count your commercial management world.
Right.
What are those barriers and those caps and thresholds that you hit, and how do you break through those? What have you seen there?
Well, we do, talk about the life cycle of a business, life cycle of a landscape business, and it's not new to us. We kind of learned that concept through the E-Myth contractor years ago from Michael Gerber, but being able to live it and see it and feel it and witness it and walk our way through that life cycle has been beneficial to us. And to your point, there are break points, whether it's the $1 million company that finally wants to get to 3 and the 3 that gets to 5. And once you get beyond 5, can you double every 5 years, and get to 15? There are gateposts and milestones within that growth that you have to master. We kid around a little bit and we say it's just landscaping.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but it's really pretty darn complicated.
Yeah. There's a lot of science to it.
100%. Yeah. When you think about dispatching hundreds of people, multiple crews across a geographic area to deliver on a promise that somebody else made, and you got to not only deliver on it, but you got to deliver on it with the highest safety and quality standards. And you got to hit your hours, and then you got to get back to the shop safe and sound and get ready for the next day. And it takes an incredible amount of planning and logistics, and it just doesn't happen accidentally.
Yeah.
So learning how to intentionally grow your business and knowing where you are in that life cycle curve is a big part of it. And that's one of the things we teach people is every company that we deal with is somewhere along that continuum. Yeah. And if we can show you where you are on that continuum, then we can help you move to the next level.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Here's the bottlenecks.
Faster.
Yes. Here's the investments that you're going to have to make. Hey, here's the things you have to change, Ben, as a leader, right?
Well,
that change with leadership.
You honestly have to kind of, as you go through these stages, you sort of have to reinvent the company and yourself because it's not the same at 3.
Can you say that again?
You have to reinvent
yourself and the company.
And yes.
Yeah.
Your leadership style is not the same at $10 million as at 3, right? At 3, you do it all. At 10, you delegate it all, but you're still the leader, right? And the company's not the same. The structure's different.
Yeah.
At 3, everybody does everything. At 10, everybody is specified.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Let's take off our operator hats, our entrepreneur hat, our sales hat, our accounting finance hat. And let's just say the 3 of us are in the room and we're sitting as investors. We have our investor hat on. And the 3 of us have a bunch of money that we want to go deploy and invest in a single asset. It could be landscape maintenance, it could be turf care, it could be HVAC, it could be anything, right? But we have capital to invest and deploy. Let's say we're a small family office together. Might have to follow up on that one day.
Okay, all right.
If the first checklist item is leadership, and I want the audience to understand that is the first item, is you got to pick the right people and leaders, and that's big in that investor community. And you've been in a ton of businesses. What characteristics, what things are you looking for in a CEO? What things would you be looking for in a leadership team? And again, we're not coming in as 3PG. We're not coming in as advisor. We're just investors, and we're trying to pick the right leader in the right business. Speak to that if you would.
I would. So I would look for somebody in a leadership position that really had a great appreciation for culture, for the culture of the business. Probably number one, because it's a highly competitive industry. And the differentiator in highly competitive industries is going to be culture. And their culture doesn't have to be perfect, but they have to understand the importance of that, value it, invest in it, invest themselves and their money and time in that. Number one, right? Yep. Number two, I really want, particularly in our industry, to find somebody that has some financial acumen, right? We have to speak a common language, and the common language is the P&L. It's understanding the budget process and what that implies in terms of my strategic sales plan and my strategic operational plan, right? And I got to be able to read a P&L, and that's my scorecard against that plan, and I need that kind of acumen in that leadership position, right? And I guess, the third final thing is I want somebody who has had some experience with change management. You're gonna change at some point in your company from central command and control to branch structure, or you're gonna onboard a new piece of software, or you're going to initiate a lean program or something, but we're never going to run out. It's very nuanced, and you really have to, you get to test your leadership muscle in managing change, right? And in driving change into your company, because you will do that forever in your leadership career or not. And if you're not good at it, I ain't putting my money there.
Yeah, it's really well said. Ken, what would you add there?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Ben has said. To me, I think the leader of any organization needs to be a big picture thinker that can have a vision for the future and cast that vision to a team in order to get buy-in and motivate and inspire the group that this is a good place to be one day. And if we can define where we're going, then we should be able to build a strategic plan to get from here to there. And back to your point, and then we need strong change management. If there's a lot of directional change that needs to happen, a good leader needs to be able to surround themselves with people that have their weaknesses as their strengths, the leader's weaknesses as their strengths. So building a team of people that synergetically create 1 + 1 = 3 is a big part of that leadership role, I believe, as well.
Do you believe a lot of the best leaders that we see, they're hyper competitive?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. When you really get to know them and spend time, there's an ounce of they're humble.
You got to be, right? Leadership, you got to have, I don't want to use the word arrogance, but in a leadership position,
confidence.
if you're going to confidence,
Yes.
Confidence, better adjective. You got to have confidence in that role, but without humility, nobody's going to follow.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that gets overlooked. I mean, hey, I'm Superman. I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm the richest guy in the room. If we have our investor hat on, it's pretty quickly probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I think that maybe goes along with emotional intelligence and an understanding that we all have blind spots.
Yep.
And our blind spot is really the gap between our intentions and our actions. People don't measure us by our intentions. They measure us by what they see coming out of our mouths and our hands and our actions. So that's the emotional intelligence side of leadership.
Yeah, it's really well said. I think if we pivot off of people for a minute and just look at characteristics in a business that, again, we're investors, we feel like we can scale. Ben, I'll come back to you. Do you guys believe that if we look at a business that really hasn't had a track record of organic growth, that suddenly us as new investors, because we can bring in better people and systems, that suddenly that business is going to start growing? Do you buy that logic? Yeah.
You got
It hasn't happened yet.
No, it hasn't happened yet. As an investor, that's the hat that I'm wearing, right? If that organization cannot drive organic growth on its own, doesn't have a history of doing that, then I got a big question mark.
Yeah. Ken, do you still see in all the work that you and Ben and team are doing that we're still running into financials that don't tie, accounting, finance, administrative support that's undervalued, that people aren't making as owners and leaders? They're not making enough investment in that side of the business. Are we still seeing, back to Ben, to your point of financial acumen, it's still undervalued in the industry? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I would. Again, I still think there's a certain amount of technician mindset out there in the industry. Let's just go work our butts off every day,
Right.
and it'll work out.
Hey, there's money in the checking account.
There's money in the checking account,
Right.
Or if there's not, let's just let's throw some more time and money and effort at the problem out there, and it'll get better.
Yeah.
But not understanding the root cause, of what's actually happening in a business, whether it's a lack of sales, a lack of enhancement, penetration, a lack of gross margin, whatever it may be, high employee turnover, without tying that back to the financials. I mean, it's just like if we went to the doctor tomorrow for a checkup. They might ask you a few questions, but what do they do first?
Right.
They check your vitals.
Right.
They check your heart rate and your blood pressure and, your oxygen level and whatever else. And that is the indicator to them of where to dig deeper. That's their only way to figure out what's really going on in that body.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in businesses, and you do as well. The numbers tell a story. If we could only connect the dots with the owners to say, look, your numbers are telling you a story. Are you looking at your numbers?
Yeah. That's my favorite is one of our foundation items at 3PG is trust but verify. And when you start verifying what people are telling you in the raw data, it's eye-opening both ways.
Yes.
Hey, I want to just move on here, but I want to kind of make one statement because as we're talking here, I'm thinking about it. We've had the pleasure at 3PG of working with a number of CEOs and owners that brought on their first private equity institutional capital partner. And you guys, we don't need to name names, but we could rattle off a dozen together. And one of the things that I think about is who those CEOs were at the point at which they invited some institutional capital in. And then 3, 5, 7 years later, back to your point on continuous learning with leadership, it's a great cover story for one of the trade industry magazines where we pull together 5 CEOs that just were founders and CEOs, the difference in who they are with leadership, financial acumen, size and scale 3 years, 5 years, 7 years later versus who they were back when they were doing $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million in EBITDA. Some of those guys are doing 30, 35 million in EBITDA. It's a good lesson to the audience around continuous learning your best self. And if you think you're, arrived and know everything, back to our investor hat, we'd probably take a pass on that. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. When you think about that, when you are the owner and you're not capitalized by anybody else and you live in your own world of sometimes fear and capabilities, it's hard to do things that you would like to do or that you should do, but you just can't do them because of the situation you're in. When you're freed up from some of that liability and fear, it's amazing what you can do to grow to that next level. It's a pivot point.
It is. I think people get comfortable, right? There's just go spend some time listening to Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, right? When you have success, or even now, I guess Kurt Signetti, right? We got to pull Signetti in. Complacency and what that does to an organization. I think the other thing that I think about, just from a leadership perspective, and I want to hop out of it, is the three of us have had a front row seat of transformational change. And even for the younger, leaders in the industry, my biggest messaging is think bigger.
Yeah. That's
right?
good.
Back, Ken, to your point, like there used to be just a handful of companies, $3 to $5 million, and now, just look at the size and scale in the industry. So I'm just a big believer in it's happening around you. Great companies with or without institutional money that are growing with size and scale. Why not you? And by the way, you're not thinking big enough.
That's right.
I also believe it's harder. It's harder than it's ever been, but fun times for sure. So let's pivot here. I want to unpack one other thing, Ken, and I'll start with you just on I still run into companies in the space where when I say, hey, what's your go-to-market strategy? And we get referrals because we're good and people see our trucks. And now it's even more competitive. You guys spend a lot of time with sales training, particularly at the contract maintenance level and the account manager level.
Right.
What are the bottlenecks there, Ken? What aren't people teaching? What are they missing from a training perspective on such an important aspect of the front end of the business? Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. I think, starting out, if you think about the reoccurring maintenance model, it's incredibly valuable and it has a lot of strength to it, but the law of attrition is real.
Yep.
Right. So the law of attrition is real. So for a $5 million company with an average attrition of 10%, we're losing $500,000 a year of business, along with any enhancement or ancillary sales that follow that dollar of base maintenance.
Yep.
So take that to 10 million. How about 100 million? How much business do we lose at 10%? $10 million goes away every year at 10% attrition. So we start out with this huge issue and gap that we have to fill before we can even start to grow.
And some companies aren't even at 10%.
That's right.
Right?
That's true too,
That's right.
Yeah.
So no matter how good you are, there's the law of attrition that you have to overcome. So then we have this idea of business development and account management. And two things are kind of impacting what's going on today in the industry. Number one is our buyer is under a lot of pressure themselves. The property management industry, the real estate professionals that are out there, number one, they're younger, they're inexperienced, they don't know what they don't know, for one thing.
Yep.
They're overworked. They don't have the staff that property managers and engineers had back in the day when we first started in the industry.
Yep.
And those two things alone make them rather skeptical about making change in their landscape service provider or buying off on a large enhancement job. They just don't know.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges is we got to educate our customer. Number two, the account managers in our industry and the salespeople don't speak property management. They speak landscaping. They haven't been trained classically in business-to-business sales and uncovering the root cause of problems with their customers and offering guidance on how to prevent issues from becoming problems, costly problems in the future. And that's one of the reasons we spent so much time on our account management master's programs and our business development programs, because we're trying to show our industry technicians how to become good problem solvers and salespeople.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Ben, I want to puke every time I hear somebody say, I'm a relationship salesperson.
Right. Yeah.
Because people don't buy on the hope of a gain. Hey, we communicate better. I'm a better, we're going to have some commonality. Don't you have to throw darts in the sales process and solve problems? Like, talk about that a little bit. Everybody says relationship, and I get it, but what's the secret sauce there on getting people to act?
Well, so in business development, the thing that we try to teach is a system, not just charisma, not just be busy and take people to lunch, but a system, right? And there's a system that starts with prospecting, qualifying, needs analysis, estimating, proposal, negotiating, closing, right? And it's a multi-step system, and underneath each one of those items that I just named off, there's content, right? And you walk people through that. And you do have to be relationship oriented, and you do have to appreciate people, but you also have to, understand business to business sales and approach it as such, right?
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, and relational selling is great when you own the client and you've built a trusted advisor relationship, but that's not going to get you new business other than referral.
Right.
You got to go out knocking on doors and you got to build a connection before you can build a relationship.
Yeah. I love solving problems. And a lot of times salespeople talk too much. They don't listen. I know you guys teach that quite a bit, that you got to listen. You got to solve problems. I think you also got to identify compliance and risk issues on properties. The other thing that I think about that I think is real in the world of selling is missed opportunity. Hey, your competitors are doing this. And so one of the reasons that your occupancy rates are down is your competitors down the road are doing this and you're not doing that.
That's right.
Right. So doesn't that motivate people versus, hey, we're really good at what we do and we communicate. That's right.
Yeah, we're
and I'm
really
a good
good.
guy. Like we both like football. I'll take you to a Georgia football game. Like
That's right.
whatever.
We
teach
our in account management. We teach. Look, there's safety issues, there's infrastructure and functional issues, and there's aesthetic opportunities, right? So, in your first obligation and opportunity, frankly, with your customers, to identify the safety issues, and if they're associated with the landscape, let's go provide solutions, right?
Yeah.
And then landscapes age, and so what about the drainage? What about the irrigation? What about the infrastructure? What about the things on the landscape that are going to get more and more expensive over time that's got to be fixed, right? And they're not sexy, they're not the aesthetic things, but in terms of servicing that market, we need to be able to identify those things and teach people how to sell those solutions because our customers need to buy them.
Yeah.
And then there's aesthetic opportunities, which are endless, but we got to be smart about it.
Well said. Ken, any final thoughts there?
Yeah, just a quick thought. One of my beautiful daughters is a property manager. She manages quite a bit of office space, and office across the country is a market vertical that's under a bit of pressure.
Everybody wants to sit at home and work, man.
That's right. So there are some unique challenges depending on who you're selling to. But the other thing that she explained to a business development group recently was that she had 7 people knock on her door and come into her office just last week wanting to get a look at her business. Nobody had a different approach. Everybody brought cookies. It was the same kind of thing.
Right.
And she's like, try something new, for crying out loud. I'm busy. My gatekeeper knows you're not getting in to see me. And I know that sounds like I'm a beep, but that's my world I live in. I have so many responsibilities. I have to answer to so many different people other than my tenants, that you got to find a way to get in. You got to find a way to connect, and you got to have a pitch that is truly about what's going on in the industry and what their competitors are doing. You got to educate them quickly.
Yeah. Hey, we're really good people. Here's some cookies. By the way, nobody eats cookies anymore. That's right. Nobody eats cookies, people. There's a lesson out there. That's right. All right, listen, I want to pivot kind of rapid fire here. And again, we need to do a series together because, we got so many experiences that I think is applicable to the audience. So, all right, let's pivot rapid fire. If you think about, Ken, your own children, or you think about a young CEO or entrepreneur, what's one lesson? What would you say to them? Say, hey, think about this. What's the life lesson? What's the thing that you say, hey, this can be transformative for you? I'm going to answer as well in rapid fire, but I'm going to start with you.
Wow. We talked about the complexity of business. Yeah, you're going to go through difficult times, and everybody goes through them. You're going through the same thing everybody else is going through. You got to win the day. You got to believe in yourself. You got to realize that you're not alone, and across the country, somebody has already solved the problems that you're struggling with today. Reach out, look for wise counsel, look for the model that's already been developed. Don't try to recreate the wheel. Yep. That's foolish. Find the wisdom that's out there in the experience and take advantage of it.
Yeah, well said. Ben, how about you?
I'm going to echo that and just put it in another way. The young CEO, look for who, not how. You don't need to know how to do everything, right? Yeah. You don't have time to need to know how to do everything. And if you're caught up with that, it's going to take you 40 years, right, to get there. Who can help you? Can Jeff help you? Can Ken help you? Can Ben? Who can help you? Who can do the thing? Your job in that leadership position is to figure out where you're going.
Yeah.
It's not figure out how on everything.
Yeah, well said. I set you guys up on this because I've been thinking about this question, right? Fairness, rapid fire. Number one, I hate the term work-life balance because the most successful people that I know, both personally and professionally, meaning they're happy in life, they're not dependent on a paycheck, they've built companies that have transformationally changed people around them.
Yes.
And that's a really cool thing to say, hey, if I didn't meet Ken Thomas, if I didn't meet Ben Gandy, where would me and my family be today? Right. And I get that's higher level. But what I think about is this: work-life balance doesn't exist in the life of the most successful business owners, in my opinion. I think they've found a passion and they're always on. And this concept that it's easy, or you don't have to work hard, or you don't have to log more hours, I just think is such garbage. Because the most successful people that I think the three of us know, I say even today, they're still the hardest working. They've also brought and built, Ken, to your point earlier, is what are my strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to surround myself with great people. So I just think that if you're not working hard, now you can work smart, but it's also hard, number one. I tell my boys, get your butt out of bed, because most people can't. And if you can get out of bed early and get started, you're already ahead of the average Joe out there. Two is, you never know who can change your life personally and professionally. And so you have to be able to network.
Yes.
You have to be able to talk to people. Like even in our relationship, as we just talked about back then, just in how long we've known. And I do value so much our relationship, and just amazed at the things that you guys have done, and amazed together of what we've done in the industry, right? It's just pretty cool. But you got to be out there talking to people, particularly if you're young in your career, because you never know who can take you in a different path and different direction. I know we can all speak about people that kind of changed our own arc or direction. We mentioned Kevin Kehoe before, like the impact Kevin had, on landscape techniques, the impact that he, God rest his soul, had on the three of us, right? Just 100%. With what's happened in the industry. And then last, I talked about this with Brian Will, one of the previous guests. You have to really protect yourself with the stuff that you put in your head. There's so much garbage out there. There's so many non-believers. Hey, and if you want to be broke in life and be unhappy, hang around with broke, unhappy people, right? And some of that's cliche, and I'm not trying to be negative. But I think as you grow in business, you really have to take a step back and say, okay, what changes do I need to make with what's coming into my head? Data, information. Where do I want to go next? And can I start associating with people that I admire, but also are at a level that makes sense, right? So I told you I set you up. I've been thinking about that.
You have, and those are great points.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
All right, last thing, and because I can't believe how quick time goes. So again, thank you for coming in. I know the audience, there's just so many nuggets here to do that. Like I said, we probably need to do one of three, right? Because we could deep dive. Last thing, rapid fire. Where do you see the industry with AI right now in robotics? Okay. Ben, I'll start with you.
So there's two things. Robotics and AI are kind of not the same thing. Robotics, right now, people are looking at it and saying, well, the landscape industry is going to be immune because they're not going to be able to prune shrubs. They're not going to be able to pull weeds. But I think that's not true. I really think they can already mow grass. They're getting smarter. They're getting better. Robotics are going to be a part of the future workforce. And I think that the play right now is to learn how to make money with them, right? Because if I could buy a $50,000 robot that could pull weeds, I'd do it. If I got if it's $1 million, I wouldn't. So what's the right kind of economics behind the robotics, and how do I work them in? And but it's coming, and our job is not to understand the technologies, understand the business play. So that's my statement on robotics. AI is a cool tool. But AI is not going to replace relationships.
That's
man.
right.
An AI bot. What's your experience with an AI bot? Right? It's a bit impersonal. If your needs are easy, great. I'd rather do it with an AI than wait on hold on the phone for somebody, right? But an AI agent has never going to suffer. It's never going to love. It's never going to hug anybody. There's a limit. I can't have a relationship with an entity that doesn't share my experience in the world. So relationally, they're not going to replace people.
I think the human element is connectivity, right? No matter what technology comes and goes, there's still a togetherness, a human connection that's always going to exist in business, both with your employees and team, but also with customers. You say that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, Ken? What's when I say AI and I say robotics, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot more to say than what you guys have said. We teach a lot of young landscapers about the business of landscaping, and we talk about the changes that have happened in the industry since we were in it, all the way from the equipment that's out there today, the software, the chemicals that are being used. Everything's changed, and yet the one thing that hasn't changed is the value of people and the value of relationship. And I don't think there's anything that's ever going to change that until people are just so afraid of each other that they stay in their houses and they don't want to talk to anybody, which hopefully we don't get there.
Yeah. I think there's some interesting, and I'll close with this, just some interesting thoughts out there. I think that in the blue collar trades, field services industry, if you look at an action that's happening in business that's 100% dependent on a person, I think we'll continue to see now that action or that function could be 20, 30% AI, 70% human, right? So there is some efficiency there, certainly in data. I'll give you a good example. I'm trying to get to a point where everything I do is talk. I don't want to type. I don't want to write anything down. If you go back to years ago, I'm geeking out here. If you go back to the Iron Man movie, right, with Jarvis, and what's he doing? He's in there talking to Jarvis, and he's putting thoughts out there and dictating. So I think there's a lot of efficiency coming. I love the term highest and best use with high achievers. Like, how do I pay my people more, my highest achievers? How do I get more efficient, right? I think there's room for improvement there. I'm going to close with this because I am a fan of where we're going with robotics in the industry. And I think it's early, but AI has changed so much just in 1 year, just in the past 90 days. We all have our investor hat on. And to build great companies requires great people. It requires systems and process. But I have not seen, and this is a challenge to the audience, somebody come to me and point to cash flow, gross profit margin, or EBITDA, where they can say and articulate in a work paper, here's what my investment in robotics has done. Here's what my investment in AI has done. Is it showing up in cash flow, margin, EBITDA, et cetera? Now, I think those days are coming, but I would love for somebody to pull the three of us aside and say, A, B, C. Because at the end of the day, the beautiful thing about value creation is I don't want $1 to equal $1.
Right.
I want $1 to equal $8, $10, $13, $15. That's how you create wealth, right? So it's amazing. I think we're in some really transformational times the past 10 years, just in what we said earlier, 700 transactions. Companies of size and scale, institutional money, both equity and debt. And what's great is the three of us have kind of seen that, right? We're still good looking. We still, look at us, right? We got a little experience, right? But hey, listen, thank you again. I want to make sure the audience knows where to find you, because if you haven't spent time with Ben and Ken, tremendous leaders in the industry, Hall of Fame. There's so much content, so many nuggets, a whole library of training and operating system. And so you're just out there, right? You're everywhere.
Well, we're out there. And while we have a second, obviously visit us on our website at advisorco.com. And we want to announce an incredible event coming up in June 24th and June 25th out in Omaha, Nebraska. We're hosting our Envision 2026 conference, which is out at Mulhall's Landscape, a great organization out there, Mick Mulhall and his team. And it's a great event to bring your team and to see like a real life case study of how organizational development can help you to grow and scale your business. Again, going back to seeking wisdom, this is the place to go see it in reality.
Yeah.
Come see us out there.
Yeah, fantastic. Ben, it's great to be together. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Keep up the good work. Ken, always a pleasure.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, stay tuned. Next episode. Thanks, everybody.